For many people, maybe this is the first time that some of you have ever done it before. It's a very chashuv tefillah. So let me give you a little bit of a background of what Tikkun Chatzos is, where it comes from, and then I'll explain what the avoid is, and then we'll go through it together. And it's mamash not long. So what is Tikkun Chatzos? So in the Gemara, you don't find any mention of such a thing. Bavli Yerushalmi. In Nigla, there's no real makar of there being such an inyan of davening at midnight. There's a reference. The Vilna Gaon teaches a particular line of a Gemara that's a reference to it. There's no clear makar to it. What's amazing is that in the Zohar Kaddish, you literally cannot go 3 pages in the Zohar without Tikkun Chatzos being mentioned. It's a very, very big inyan in the Zohar Kaddish. So in the Shulchan Aruch, the Beis Yosef, obviously he learned the Zohar, he knows the Zohar, so he realized that. So the Beis Yosef records in Shulchan Aruch, in the first segment of Shulchan Aruch, that it's a davar roy, it's a nice thing for a Yari Shemayim every midnight to be mitzvah or to do Tikkun Chatzos, and he explains a little bit to be mitzvah on the Churban Beis Hamikdash. Okay, it doesn't really, but like what is it exactly? In the Kisvei Ari, that's when it becomes really, really fleshed out. According to the Arizal, Tikkun Chatzos is as significant as Shacharis Mincha Ma'ariv. It's mamish. Adrabah, by the Arizal, the day starts with Tikkun Chatzos. That's where it starts with Tikkun Chatzos. Now, one of the things that took place over the centuries is that Tikkun Chatzos, the way in its, like this, Reb Sroy Deblitsky was one of the Gedolei Mekubalim in Bnei Brak. He just was nifted not too long ago. So he wrote one place, he said that one of the main reasons why he thinks Tikkun Chatzos is not as popular as it used to be is because over the centuries it became like this intimidating thing. Is that we don't know what Tikkun Chatzos is, but whatever it is, it conjures up the image of like this old mystic sitting with ashes and mourning over the Shechina, sitting by a stove and some it becomes, and you have to like stay up the rest of the night learning, like this whole intimidating thing. And so Reb Soroya said that one of the big inyanim that he feels needs to be done is for people to realize what Tikkun Chatzos is in its most basic form. And when you realize that, and you learn a little bit about what's happening with Tikkun Chatzos, not only is it a chush of a thing, but it's not so intimidating. It's mamish not intimidating at all. So it's like this. So in any Siddurim, Svardish Siddurim, you'll see like Tikkun Chatzos pages and pages and pages. But I don't want to do that. I dafka don't, even though maybe this is the first time that some of us have done it before, I dafka want to do the version of Tikkun Chatzos as it is in the Kisvei Ari, which is just the most basic form of it. And it's basically just a number of kapitel tilim with some sukkim, and that's it. So it's something that can be done. And this whole idea that people have in the image of their head is that you have to stay up all night and so on, that's not necessary. It's not necessary. The main thing is that at the point of Chatzos Laila, to say Tikkun Chatzos. And you want to go to sleep before, it's fine. You want to go to sleep after, is also fine. But if you find yourself awake by Chatzos, it's definitely a good idea to do Tikkun Chatzos. When is Chatzos? Okay, so let's say midday today was, I think, at 1 p.m. So Chatzos technically is 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm not schlepping you till 1 o'clock in the morning, but I will say, I'll tell you one thing, that the Baal Tanya held like this, other tzaddikim held like this, the Kamarna, the Ramak already, it's brought down. That doesn't have to be Chatzos Mamish, give or take a couple hours is also fine. So the main thing is, one of the big differences between Sfardim and Chassidim in their approach to Kisvei Ari is that Sfardim look at Kisvei Ari as Shulchan Aruch. It's the way it has to be. Chassidus looks at the Kisvei Ari as sort of a mafteach, a shar to a certain headspace. So even if it's not exactly the way the Arizal says it and so on, it's also okay. So the Shulchan Aruch paskins like this, that Tikkun Chatzos could be within a frame of 2 hours and so on. And even if it's not exactly midnight or even outside of that framework, as you'll see, it's kapitel tilim, so there's nothing wrong about it. So what is Tikkun Chatzos? Okay, so just for a few minutes, then we'll begin. I don't know what people ask what the program is. I don't have a program. I don't know. We'll sing some Niguna. We'll figure it out. So it's like this. Tikkun Chatzos in the Kisvei Ari is broken down into 2 parts. It's what's called Tikun Rachel and Tikun Leah. The aside of Tikkun Chatzos is at a moment of midnight. That's specifically when Meizat Hamshiyah, for whatever the reason is, Tikkun Chatzos is the moment when the Rabbanu Shalom Kviyachol mourns over the Galus of the divine presence, the Galus of the Shechina. And the avodah of Tikkun Chatzos is to be mishtatev with the Rebbeinu Shalom Tsar. That's what it is. To be mishtatev with the Rebbeinu Shalom Tsar, to give the Rebbeinu Shalom Kiviyachal a space that he can mourn, that he can cry. Because one of the most depressing things is a person that's going through a difficult time that like has to go to a chasana, right? And like he can't just hide somewhere. Like he has to be. If a person is going through something difficult, then you need the most therapeutic thing is to have an environment that you could express that. So Rebbeinu Shalom has to go to work every single day, getting the sun up and the sun down, and making the flowers blossom and everything going well. And he has to be by chasana every single second of every single day. Tikkun Chatzos is when the Rebbeinu Shalom Kiviyachal is able to be mitzdar over the Galus HaShechina, and he needs people to create that environment that he could Kiviyachal express himself like that. So by us saying these kapitel Tehillim, whether we feel it, we don't feel it, we know we don't know it, in the neshama we're creating a space for the Rebbeinu Shalom to express his tsar over the Galus, over the Churban Beis Hamikdash, over the Galus HaShechina, and that itself is an unbelievable tikkun in its own right. As we know this physically, right? When a person, and emotionally, a person has something heavy on his heart, and he's able to express it, to cry, sometimes that's the biggest tikkun that he needs, is just to be able to express himself. So what is the Galus HaShechina? So at least to give a little bit of what that is. So let me give you a very simple mashal. And again, it's late, and it's been a long day for some of us, I'm sure, so it's hard to sort of get to be emotional right now because it's late and we're tired, but that's okay. Even if we understand something intellectually, that's also kedai. The Tanya writes this. He says that sometimes because of a situation, you can't get yourself to become emotionally inspired with a Havas Hashem, a Yiras Hashem, or whatever the emotion is. The Tanya says that's okay. All you have to do is think about it enough that if you had the energy, you would become emotionally engaged, and that's called being that's what the Rebbeinu Shalom wants of you. So even if we're not gonna get ourselves all riled up emotionally, we think about it, and if we were able to, we would, and that's enough. So what does it mean, the Galus HaShechina? What's Hashem crying over? What's Hashem? What we would cry over? We have stuff to cry over, and that we'll get there for Tisha B'Av. Tikkun Chatzos is not to cry over our inyan. Tikkun Chatzos is to allow Hashem to cry over His inyan. So what's Hashem crying over? So very simple mashal, straightforward, without getting too complicated. So I mentioned this to one of the chaver before. Let's say you have a child, right, or a spouse or someone that you love with all your heart and soul, and let's say this kid or whatever finds themselves in a situation that's a very, very bad, difficult situation, dangerous. Their life is in danger. Who knows? Terrible. And you are mishtadel with all the hishtadels that you could possibly come up with. You do all the effort that you can to save your son, to save your child, to save your wife, to save your best friend. It's amazing. But let's say that child or that person is not allowed to know that you're the one that saved them. And adrava, not only is he not allowed to know that you're the one that saved him, but he's led to believe that you were the one to put him in the tzara and someone else saved him. And now, the unbelievable pain that the parent feels in not having that moment of eye contact. What does the father want? The father wants the child to know that that all the parent thinks about is the child. That's what the parent wants the child to feel, and the parent wants to sort of feel that appreciation in the child's eyes, not because like the nachas, but just the father feels missing. There's a piece of him missing. If even he knows that he's doing everything he can for the child, but the child doesn't realize it. That itself is incredibly painful for the father. So the Rebbeinu Shalom is infinite. We don't know who God is, but this is what the Rebbeinu Shalom mourns over. The Rebbeinu Shalom is our world. The Rebbeinu Shalom is taking care of us. He loves us with an infinite love. The Rebbeinu Shalom gives us Torah and Yiddishkeit and truth and existence and Metzias and life and just everything, and we can't know it. That's what it means, the Galus HaShechina. That's what it means the Shechina is in Galus. The Shechina means our ability to experience the Rebbeinu Shalom's presence in our lives. That's in Galus. That's missing. So that's enough reason for us to cry. But Tikkun Chatzos is the Rebbeinu Shalom sad over that, because the Rebbeinu Shalom wants us to look at him and to I know that you were protecting me, you were watching me the whole time, and the Rebbeinu Shalom we're not allowed to have that moment. We can't have that moment. We have to think that maybe the Rebbeinu Shalom is the one that put us in the tsar. When the Rebbeinu Shalom is thinking, I put you in the tsar. I'm the one that's saving you. I'm the air that you're breathing. All day long, all my whole thing is I'm just thinking about you. And we can't give the Rebbeinu Shalom that joy and that wholeness of us, of him knowing that we know that. That's the Galus Hashem. And so the Tikun Chatzot is divided into two parts, as I said. The first part, the first kapitel Tehillim, are called Tikun Rachel. For whatever reason, those are the kapitel Tehillim that are describing that pain of the Rebbeinu Shalom, of not being allowed to have the satisfaction of us knowing that he's taking care of us. The Galus of the Shechina, that's Tikun Rachel. And then you transition to Tikun Leah, and Tikun Leah is sort of a little bit of a taste of that redemption. Tikun Rachel is all psukim of like talking about Churban Beis Hamikdash and difficult things. And then Tikun Leah transitions to what? To Kapitel Tehillim, which are much more simplified. Kapitel Tehillim, which are describing the desire of the neshama of a Jew to come close to Hashem. Once we've sort of identified what's bothering Hashem so much, and the fact that he wants us to feel his love for us, so that itself is half of the comfort, knowing that that's what the Rebbeinu Shalom is really bothered by. So then we move into Tikun Leah, which are psukim to describe how much we actually, whether we feel it or not, we believe that the Rebbeinu Shalom does love us, and we want to love him, and we want to have that connection back, and that's what Tikun Leah is about. So this is what's going on. So the first part is about describing the pain that Hashem feels in sort of the reality of us not realizing how much he loves us. That's Tikun Rachel, that's the pain of it. And then you go to Tikun Leah, which is about describing how much we do love him, and how much we want to love him, and we want to come back, we want to come close to him. That's what Tikun Leah is. And by saying these kapitel Tehillim, so we give Hashem the space to be able to express himself and to go through Kiviyachol, that therapy that the Shlita needs to go through. So it's like this. So like I said, the whole part of this Inyan is to make it in such a way that it's not overwhelming, and it could be done any night that you happen to find yourself awake within a couple hours of Chatzos. So you open a siddur, you say Tikun Chatzos, it's no big deal. Now the way the Arizal describes it is, Sfardim, by the way, usually that's comfortable to do Tikun Chatzos together. Ashkenazim usually do it by themselves.
What does together mean?
Huh? Tikun Chatzos means, literally it means, huh?
Together.
Together? It means like this. Literally like a minyan. They get together and they do Tikun Chatzos. Ashkenazim, the Masorah is always by ourselves, but listen, it's okay to be Sephardi for a night, and we'll do this together. It's no big deal. Even by the way, in Hungary, it's recorded Chassam Sofer in his Beis Medrash, they did Tikun Chatzos all together. So everyone likes to claim that they're from Chassam Sofer, so Chassam Sofer is okay, so fine, it's okay. The Chassam Sofer would hold that it's okay what we're doing. So the Rizal records to say Tikun Chatzos, specifically, to sit on the floor with your shoes off, and specifically, if you can, by a doorway of a mezuzah. The doorway and the mezuzah is a metaphor to the Shechina. It's that gateway between us and the Rebbeinu Shalom, our ability to see his presence. It's sort of like we're on the outside coming in, so it's by a doorway. But like I said, the Ikar Avodah is the Kapitel Tehillim and the mental and emotional investment that we put in. So if you want to sit on the floor, it's Matav Manayim. If you don't want to sit on the floor, it's also fine. It's Nishkeferlach. We don't have enough mezuzahs for everyone to sit by mezuzahs that we're not going to be able to do. And one other thing that the Rizal does bring down is to take some ash and to place it, to place it on the place of tefillin. And so we'll pass it around and we'll take a little piece and be able to do that. And we'll know going in, the kavana, when you put that piece of ash on your place of tefillin, is that what you're mourning over with that is not within the Galus of the Shechina is the Galus of Torah. The Torah that we don't even know what Yiddishkeit is. And the Rebbeinu Shalom so desperately wants us to know what Yiddishkeit is, and he's giving it to us, but we can't chop it, we can't perceive it. We don't know what he wants of us. We don't even if we do know the halacha, we don't know what's going on. The Galus of Torah itself. And the Torah, which is the pe'er, the beauty of the Jewish people, has turned into afer, it's turned into ash. And so that's the kavanah when you put the ash on the head, and then we'll go together to say Tikun Chatzos together. Okay? Maybe if someone comes up with a niggin, we could sing something as the ash is passed around, but that's not, I don't put anyone on the spot like that. No pressure.
Yeah.
specifically have in mind to allow the Rebbeinu Shalom to cry over Churban Beis Hamikdash. Beis Hamikdash was a place of the Rebbeinu Shalom's presence in the world and his, again, closeness to the Jewish people, and who the Rebbeinu Shalom is, and who the Rebbeinu Shalom always was. That was Beis Hamikdash, and not having that means the Rebbeinu Shalom can't. There's something holding us back from being able to, again, like I said, to be able to really appreciate how the Rebbeinu Shalom is always embracing us and always hugging us, and that's what Al Nahar's bubble is. Let's move on. Let's see. Unless it's impaired, that is it. For Al Nahar's bubble, Shalom Yasham. So the next kapitel, the Rizal said to specifically, again, allow the Rebbeinu Shalom to mourn over death of tzaddikim. Tzaddikim, if you don't have a Beis Hamikdash, at least you have a tzaddik that's able to, through him, you feel Hashem's love and Hashem's warmth towards you. And when tzaddikim are not amongst us, that itself is even worse than not having a Beis Hamikdash. So that's what this next kapitel is, allowing Hashem to mourn over the death and the destruction of tzaddikim and the lack of tzaddikim. Mizmor also. the United of the Nats of the Verknation is at Shloy Hamas and the Mashli the Research Kiochos Yaakov Vesnevei Veshanu Tiskulonu Bonus Rishoine Mahir Yakabunu Rakhanav Lomo Yamagoy Mahir Tovoi Lefenecho and Castles there, Glory Los Rabbi, 7 days. Oshe Shlipnain, which was Simon Fake, Terposum, Ashirkufa, they know, Nachlam, Soy Marisefa, Oilucha, Loila, Zorba Darnis, Kapitel, the Rizal says, there's a kavanah that you have in the first few words. Zechor Hashem Mahei Lanu Habit Reis Cherpeseinu. So the Rosh Tevis of Hashem Mahei Lanu is Rosh Tevis Mila. And so the next kapitel is allowing Hashem to mourn over the fact that every Yid doesn't feel that closeness. In other words, first, the Rebbeinu Shalom is crying over the fact that there's no place in the world that all Yidden can experience Hashem's presence. And then Hashem is crying over that there's no specific individuals that embody Hashem's presence, that Yidden can go to them and experience Hashem's presence. But then finally Hashem is mourning over the fact that we don't feel Hashem's presence within ourselves. And that's also, Beis HaMikdash Tzadikim, Amech Klum Tzadikim. And that's what the Bris Milah represents. The Bris Milah represents the fact that you're a Yid. And that means if you're a Yid, it means the Rebbeinu Shalom loves you, and He's embracing you, and He's the ground under your feet. And He's the oxygen that you're breathing. He's your very mitzias. And so the fact that we don't feel that is also a reason to mourn. Hashem's crying over that. He's crying over the fact that we don't even appreciate the fact that we have a Bris Milah, that we have a Kedushas Yisrael, Tzadikim, Beis HaMikdash, but every single one of us is a tzaddik, every single one of us is a Beis HaMikdash. And that itself is enough to cry. The Rebbeinu Shalom is crying over the fact that we don't appreciate that we don't see that way.
אנחנו ועשינו סבלנו עבודה משלבנו פרקים מידם ונפשנו נביא לחמנו בני חרב המדבר רבינו חסנו נחמרו בני זלף ישרוב נשם צינינו בסולס בר יהודה סורם ביודם נסלו בני זקנים לא ינדורו אחורים תחי נסו ונעורם עץ בשובו זקנים ישר שבוסו וחרבנים גוסם שובס מסי סבינו נפח לב נחלנו נפל תרס ושנו עין אלונו כי חטאנו על זה הידוף לבינו, על לילה חוש בינינו, על הר ציון ששומעים, שואל למולכו. תוואל דיני לילה תשע תזרח לדור ודור, למה לנזף תשכחנו, תעזבנו לרח יומם. השיבנו אדוני לך ונשובה, חדש ימינו כקדם, כי אם אויז מעשתנו קצבת עלינו הבוי. השיבנו אדוני לך ונשובה, חדש ימינו כקדם.
So the next collection of psukim it's the end of Tikun Rachel. It's the end of the Avela side of Tikun Chatzot, and it's all about a tefillah that the Rebbeinu Shalom should be makabel, the Rebbeinu Shalom should be able to find a place within us to be able to mourn, and that itself should be the ultimate Tikun. That itself should lead to the ultimate Gula and the shleimus of us feeling Hashem's presence. Abeit Mishlam Rei, Nizul Koshachos Vertachai, Kenosl Persach, Moin Meach, Rachamech, Eloy Yisafok, Kiato Avinu, Kiavram Leadon, Yisrael, Yakirenu, Ato Adoinu Avinu, Paradenu, Mev Mishmecha, Lama, Taseinu, Aganim Mitrecha, Takshiach, Lebeinu, Yirisacha, Shov, Lamana Videcha, Shiftei Nachlasecha, Mitzar Yorshu, Amkuchacha, Tzvina Voices of Nikushacha, Vata Adoinu Avinu, Ato Nachlu, Achoimer, Vata Yatzina Masiyach, Gulenu, Atik Soif Adinay Anoy Bala Disgar Anoy Ein Abit Nam Kukano Orei Kod Shachai Mevartzian Midbar Shalai Shalai Yishal Shalama Beis Koshin Sevartina Shalom Luchmai Beiseinu Oil Servization Chol Machma Zeinu Oil Kerva Alayla Zavak Adnai Tachsho Sanein Admai Atei La Yosla Shma V'kach Nefarish Mesinav Yersh Nikashmaila Kiloi Sekazina Nachabim Tachim Nechim Rechem Necharabim Adinoi Shalom Adonai Slacha Adonai Shalom Seyat Acher Man Chalaya Kishem Chanikra, Lircha Velanacha. Okay, so now we begin to transition to Tikkun Leah. Again, Tikkun Leah is about about Nishmas Yisrael in Hashem's mourning, feeling like that itself is so much love in that Hashem is crying over the fact that we don't, that He wants our love. That itself is calling us to love Him. So this is the beginning of moving into that place of Tikkun Leah, where we begin to sort of feel that embrace and long to come back to Him. And so this is that transition from the mourning over sadness to the feeling of simcha and joy over actually coming back and coming closer to our Father and coming close to the one that loves us so much. Hisnar miyofu kumi shvi Yerushalayim. Hispadchi moisi tzavoret shvi abasiyon alchayim esayich Yerushalayim ifkad yishayim. Kol yom v'chol layla tomen lo yechshu miskirim es adinay al demilochem. Al tidnu domi lo yadchaynin v'yosim es Yerushalayim tila boret. Nish badinay b'min of Israel Uza yemetin es tikun eichoy v'achol v'chayich. Ten yishtu b'nei necher tirishayich. Asher yagad boy ki ma'as v'gechlu. Bahalus Adinayu Makabsa Yishtuhu Chasis Kochi Ata Sokum Trachin Sien Kesachana Kimoy Kirats of Decha Savana Vesefari Khainenu by Yerushalayim Adinai Nidche Yisrael Ichanes. So now Tikkun Leah formally begins. Susham Reshechem Inosu Biskli Olam Yovay Melech HaKavod Visa Melech HaKavod V'naisis V'gibor Adonai Gibor Chalma Susham Reshechem Isu Biskli Olam Yovay Melech HaKavod Mihu Zeh Melech HaKavod Adonai Tzavoi Su Melech HaKavod Tzala Mam Natzech Maslech Nekorech Kayil Taragel Fikemoyim Kei Navshi Saragel Lechem Tzoma Navshi Lim Elchoi Mosai Ove Veirov Neilehim Oisli Mosi Lechem Yom Laila V'mar Leikol Yom Aylecha Eiles Ravesh Balai Navshi Kever B'Sach Aleim Beis Aleim Kolrin B'Soid Amoin Kei Madish Leichi Navshi Stem Yolai Chil Hem Koyri Denish Was Ponov Lehai Lolai Navshi Shleicha Val Kenes Garcham Eretz Yardin Karmayim Armitzar Toim Lotoim Koyla Kol Tzirechel Kol Mishrechel V'Galecha Leivoru Yoimom Yitzavad Rechaz Debelayla Shirin Or little Sally Lomlish, only woman, Hatzot, Ratzak, Latzmaizek, Ravunin, Torabam, Ramelak, Yomai, Madish, Lechinau, Shivat, and Eloi, Chil, him, Kioid, Danu, Ish was Panoi, Shaftain Elohim, Riva, Rivi, Medoyle, Chosid, Mishrim, Avot, Chaltaini, Kiatul, Uzi. Oz an achton lo makray des ach lachatzayev shlach orcha v'mitchaim yinchuni v'yuni har kodshecha v'mishkuni secha v'avoyel mizbach lehim lo simchas gili v'oyel cholchin olim lihoi madish lechi navshi matem ilo yichil hem keredenu shuois panai v'lihoi lam natzech mizmu david yan chadin aviyam saroi yisagev choshem le'yakoi yishlach ezrecha v'koidesh metzion yisadav v'yizvah v'mizach v'los v'tashe salah Yidin l'choch l'sosli random shosach l'shem l'negum sh'lesevo Adi da'adi gizh l'shicha yarim shegeshoy v'merzgei shaliminoi Elo b'recha v'vasusim v'nachnu m'shem adonai l'einu nazgir Heimo koru v'nafolu v'nachnu kamlu v'nisotod Adonai Yussie melech yaneinu v'yom kireinu v'David mizbar Adonai oras v'loyo tev yishmelo Yual yamim yisod v'al nahar zichayim Ya'ala v'Adonai yakom v'em Ki chapam har leiva v'ashlinos v'shalash l'nish v'mariz v'roch v'azadinai sakol v'yishai Zedor dor Mevakshei b'nech v'yakim sels v'shor sheichem v'yos v'zcheilam v'yavay melech HaKavod Misa melech HaKavod v'naisis v'gibor Adonai gibor l'chamos v'shor sheichem v'zcheilam v'yavay melech HaKavod Mihu zeh melech HaKavod Adonai tzavoi su melech HaKavod tzala lam natzech v'gina es mizbar she'olim yichonini v'recheinu Yor ponu v'tonus aladas v'razagek v'lagam yishmusecha Yudocham v'chukum yismuchar v'kisishvayt v'mishvar v'lum mersin apasela Yudocham v'chukum mersin v'chilu v'chenem l'heinu Yerchilim v'yiroisai kolav se'oreh Hallelujah Oid Adonai b'chol levav V'soid yisharim v'eida g'day l'man sedna d'yushin chol chavseim hoid v'odeh poloi V'sidkos le'medes l'azar chazim v'loisov Chanu v'rachma doina terf nasan l'rev Yiskar loid m'bisa k'ech masa figil amai Loses lam nachlas k'layim Nasi yodav emes v'mishpav d'emana kol b'kudav Smucham la'loy l'mus v'emes v'yasher B'tud shalach l'amai Ziv loy l'mbrisa kadosh v'ner shemai
Reishis Chacham Yiras Adonai Seichel Tov V'chol Eseim Tila Soyim Ad Islad.
So according to the Rizal, all that needs to be said after this is just the next couple of psukim, and the kapitel afterwards, Lam Natzech Mizmor David, that's added later on, so that's unnecessary. So we'll just end off these kapitel till. Maybe we'll sing a nigun or two, nigun in Nechama. We can say Kaddish as well, if anyone wants. Noya tenua eres kishikar v'snoya da k'mulmuna v'chaver l'pisha v'novel l'isaysiv kum hoya b'yamu yifgad adina yaltzua l'marim b'marim v'malchi adomo adomo. according to Rizal, that's once you did Tikkun Chatzos, so tomorrow morning just flows from that. The Rizal said that when you put on tefillin, so he said, interesting, tefillin shel rosh is more chashav than tefillin shel yad. So why don't we do the tefillin shel rosh first and then the shel yad? The answer is, the whole meaning of tefillin is a response to Tikkun Chatzos. The Shechina went into Galus, everything falls apart, everything goes down a million madregas. That's what we're mourning over by Tikkun Chatzos. That's what Hashem is crying over. But tefillin means things being built back up. Things being built back up. So tefillin shel yad rises from below, and then the shel rosh comes. Everything's coming back. The Shechina is coming out of Galus. That's what tefillin is. That's what the side of tefillin is. So, it's to put tefillin on tomorrow morning as Hashem with health and good kavanas and good ritzinus, and from that the Rebbeinu Shalom, like the Berditchever said, Hashem keeps the Torah, keeps halachas. What happens when a Jew drops his tefillin? So quickly you pick it up and you give it a kiss. So the Jewish people are called Hashem's tefillin, and they've been thrown down for a long time. So Hashem has to keep halacha. He has to pick his tefillin up and give it a kiss and take better care of it. So Hashem should be zeicha to we should be zeicha to have Hashem keep that halacha in full. B'pias kol tzedek me'er v'meinu amen. Amen.